The battlefield was quiet, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the heavy silence after death, when smoke rises like ghosts and the ground is painted with ash. Daniel, a human soldier, walked carefully through the ruins, his boots crunching broken glass and twisted metal. He held his rifle tight, his eyes scanning left and right, always alert for danger. The war between humans and aliens had burned across worlds, leaving nothing but broken cities and endless graves. Daniel was tired of it all, tired of fighting, tired of killing, but still he moved forward because survival was all he had left. The air smelled of smoke and blood. The ships that once filled the sky now lay in pieces, scattered like bones across the battlefield. Daniel stepped over a fallen banner, its colors burned and torn, once proud, now forgotten. He told himself he was only searching for supplies, maybe a ration pack, maybe clean water, maybe a battery to keep his radio alive. But deep inside, he knew he was searching for something else, something he could not name. Then he heard it, a sound, weak and trembling, carried through the smoke. It was not the crack of weapons, not the rumble of machines. It was a voice, soft and broken, whispering, "Please." Daniel stopped, his heart quickening. Voices on the battlefield usually meant danger, usually meant ambush. But this voice was different, fragile, almost begging. He raised his rifle, following the sound, moving carefully between broken walls and fallen beams. And then he saw her. An alien woman lay among the wreckage, her body twisted with wounds, her silver-blue skin stained with dirt and blood. Her eyes glowed faintly in the shadows, wide with fear as she tried to lift herself, but failed. Chains were wrapped around her wrists and ankles, broken links hanging like dead weight. She looked more like a prisoner than a soldier. Daniel aimed his rifle at her chest, finger on the trigger. She gasped and lifted her hands weakly, her voice trembling. "Spare me, human. Please, don't kill me." Her words were clear, broken but understandable, spoken with an accent but carrying desperation. Daniel hesitated. His training screamed at him to fire. She was the enemy. Her kind had killed humans, destroyed cities, burned colonies. But standing before him was not a warrior. It was a woman, wounded, fragile, begging for her life. His finger froze on the trigger. "Give me one reason," Daniel said coldly, his voice low. "One reason why I should not end this now." The alien's lips trembled, her glowing eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Because I could be your family." The word struck Daniel harder than any weapon. Family. It was a word he had not heard in years. His own family had been lost when the war consumed Earth's frontier. He had buried his memories beneath layers of duty and survival. But now, here was an alien, his sworn enemy, using the very word that haunted him. Daniel tightened his grip on the rifle, but he did not fire. The battlefield seemed to hold its breath, the smoke drifting slowly around them. The alien's hands shook as she reached forward, not to attack, but to beg. "I have nothing left," she whispered. "My people are gone. My world is ash, but I can stay by your side. I can give you loyalty. I can be your family if you let me live." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to believe she was lying, wanted to believe it was a trick. But her voice carried no malice, only fear and hope. Her chains told a story. She had been captive, not free, not powerful. And now, here she was, asking him, her enemy, to save her. The soldier looked around. The ruins stretched endlessly. He could hear faint echoes of distant patrols. The war was not over. Danger was everywhere. If he left her, she would die, maybe by her wounds, maybe by other soldiers. If he saved her, he risked everything. His mind shouted one answer, but his heart whispered another. Finally, Daniel lowered his weapon, the barrel pointing to the ground. "Listen," he said sharply. "If I do this, if I spare you, then you belong with me, understood?" The alien nodded quickly, relief washing over her face like sunlight breaking through clouds. Tears slid down her cheeks as she whispered, "Yes, I will follow you." I will not betray you. Daniel stepped closer, slinging his rifle across his back. He reached out and carefully lifted her, her body light and trembling in his arms. Her head rested against his chest, and he could feel her shallow breaths. For the first time in a long time, Daniel's heart beat not from battle, but from something he could not explain. The ruins around them still burned, the sky still carried smoke. But in that moment, a human soldier and an alien woman had formed a fragile bond. Not born from peace, not born from trust, but born from desperation. Daniel carried her away from the battlefield, his steps heavy, his mind uncertain. Yet one thought echoed louder than the war around him. She had asked to be his family, and part of him wanted to believe it. The night was darker than usual, heavy clouds covering the shattered sky. Daniel moved quickly through the ruins with the alien woman in his arms, his boots slipping on wet ash and broken stone. The smell of smoke clung to the air, mixed with the faint metallic taste of blood. Every shadow looked dangerous. Every echo sounded like footsteps, yet he kept going. The woman trembled against his chest, her chains clinking softly with every step. She whispered again, her voice weak but desperate. You saved me, why? Daniel did not answer at first, his jaw tight, his eyes always scanning the ruins around him. Finally, he muttered, I don't know, maybe because I was tired of killing. The alien looked up at him with glowing eyes, pain and confusion mixing together. But I am your enemy. Why help me? Daniel stopped, resting against a broken wall, his breath heavy. Because you asked me to, because you said something no one has said to me in years. The woman tilted her head, her long hair tangled with dirt. Family, she whispered. Daniel's chest tightened again, the word like a wound that refused to heal. He placed her down gently on the ground, her body still too weak to stand on its own. Her wrists shook as she tried to break the remaining pieces of chain, but they were too strong. Daniel knelt and used his knife to cut them free, the sharp metal scraping until the last link fell. Her hands trembled in disbelief as she rubbed her sore skin. You freed me. I thought you would keep me bound. Daniel shook his head. If I wanted you dead, I would not have carried you out of that battlefield. Her lips trembled, and she lowered her eyes. Then let me stay with you. Let me prove I can be more than your enemy. Daniel studied her carefully. She was fragile, yes, but there was something in her voice, something more than fear. It was the tone of someone who had lost everything and had nothing left to cling to. He wanted to believe her, yet every instinct told him not to. You don't understand, Daniel said slowly. Humans and your kind, we don't make family, we make war. The alien lifted her gaze, her glowing eyes wet with tears. Then let me be the first to change that. Her words lingered in the air, soft yet powerful. Daniel turned away, staring at the distant fires still burning across the battlefield. He remembered his mother's face, his brother's laughter, his home on the colony world before it was destroyed. Family, something he thought the war had stolen forever. Now, this alien, this stranger, offered it back in the most unlikely way. The sound of boots suddenly echoed through the ruins, sharp and close. Daniel reacted instantly, pulling the alien into the shadows with him, pressing her against the wall. Her heart raced against his chest, her breath quick and shallow. Voices in the distance grew louder, enemy patrols searching for survivors. Daniel held her close, his hand covering her mouth gently, signaling her to stay silent. Her glowing eyes widened in fear, but she nodded, obeying him. The soldiers passed, their armor clanking, their rifles glowing faintly in the dark. One of them stopped, turning his head. Daniel's heart froze, his finger on his knife, ready to strike if needed. But the soldier turned away and kept walking, his boots fading into the distance. Daniel waited until the last sound disappeared before releasing her. The alien collapsed against him, trembling. If they had found us, we would be dead. Daniel nodded, his voice firm. That is why you must stay quiet, if you want to live. She pressed her forehead against his chest, whispering, Then I will stay silent, even if my heart breaks. Daniel pulled her back gently. Looking in her eyes, "Listen carefully," he said. "If you stay with me, you must follow my rules. You must obey everything I say. One mistake, and we are both finished." She nodded quickly, her face pale but determined. "Yes, I will do whatever you ask. I swear it." For the first time, Daniel saw not just fear in her, but also loyalty beginning to form. It was fragile, uncertain, but it was real. He studied her again, the wounds, the broken chains, the glow in her eyes. Something told him this was not just a plea for survival, but a plea for belonging. The night stretched long as Daniel carried her further away from the battlefield. Every step took them deeper into the ruins, away from the smoke and closer to the unknown. The alien woman clung to him, her weak voice whispering, "I will not betray you. I will not leave you. You are all I have left." Daniel did not answer, but his grip on her tightened. Perhaps he was not ready to accept her words, but part of him wanted to believe them. For the first time in years, Daniel felt that he was not walking alone. The ruins were darker than before, the night carrying the weight of silence. Daniel moved carefully, guiding the alien woman through broken walls and fallen beams. Her steps were weak, unsteady, and every now and then she stumbled, forcing him to catch her before she fell. The sound of their movement felt too loud in the empty world, every chain that brushed the ground, every stone that cracked beneath their boots. Daniel's eyes never stopped searching the shadows. Every flicker of light felt like danger. Every echo felt like death approaching. The alien clung to his arm, her breath shallow, her body trembling with both fear and exhaustion. She whispered, "If they find us, they will kill us both." Daniel's voice was low, steady. "Then we make sure they don't find us." He pressed a finger to his lips, reminding her to stay silent. They reached what once had been a street, now cracked open with fire marks and broken glass. The moonlight slipped through the clouds, showing pieces of burned vehicles scattered across the road. Daniel stopped, listening. Voices carried faintly in the wind, soldiers again, closer than before. The alien stiffened, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Daniel pulled her close and whispered, "Stay low, follow my steps," not a sound. They crouched and moved along the edge of the ruined street, hiding behind broken metal and collapsed walls. The voices grew clearer, laughter mixed with the clatter of weapons. A patrol of soldiers appeared, their armor shining faintly in the moonlight. Daniel pulled the alien down into the shadows, his arm covering her as the soldiers passed only a few steps away. The woman pressed her face against his chest, her heart beating fast, afraid even her breathing might betray them. Daniel's grip was steady, his body still, his eyes following every move of the patrol. One soldier stopped, shining a light across the ruins. The beam of light crawled dangerously close, sliding across stones, sliding across broken metal. Daniel did not move, did not blink, his hand pressed firmly against the alien's back, keeping her still. Finally, the soldier turned away. The patrol moved on, their voices fading into the night. The alien let out a shaky breath, whispering, "I thought we would be caught." Daniel shook his head, his voice quiet but sharp. "Fear will make you loud, but silence will keep you alive." She nodded quickly, her glowing eyes staring at him with something more than fear now, with trust. They moved again, climbing through narrow paths between broken buildings. The alien stumbled once more, falling to her knees. Daniel stopped and helped her up, his hand gripping hers tightly. Her skin was cold, her body weak, but she whispered, "I can keep going. I don't want to slow you down." Daniel looked at her for a moment, then pulled her forward. "You survive. That is all that matters." Hours passed as they crossed the ruins, moving like shadows. The fires in the distance grew smaller. The sounds of patrols faded. But Daniel knew the danger was not gone, only hidden. The alien leaned against him, her strength almost gone. She whispered, "Why do you keep helping me?" You could have left me to die." Daniel's face hardened. "Because leaving you there would make me the same as those who kill my family." Her glowing eyes softened. "Then we are the same, because I lost my family too." The silence that followed was heavy, not from danger, but from memory. Daniel remembered the faces of his loved ones, the burning colony, the screams that haunted his dreams. The alien remembered her own world, the ash, the empty sky, the chains that bound her people. For a moment, they were not enemies, not soldier and alien, but two souls carrying the same grief. They finally reached a broken stairway leading down into the remains of an underground shelter. Daniel tested the steps carefully before helping the alien down. Inside, the place smelled of dust and rust, but it was safer than the open ruins above. He placed her against the wall, giving her a moment to rest. She looked at him with tired eyes, her voice trembling. "You risked your life for me, why?" Daniel sat across from her, his rifle in his lap, his voice low. "Because maybe I don't want to walk this world alone anymore." Her lips parted, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "Then let me stay. Let me walk with you, even if the world wants us dead." Daniel stared at her for a long moment, searching for lies, searching for weakness, but all he saw was truth. The alien woman was not just begging for survival anymore. She was begging for belonging, and though Daniel did not say it aloud, he felt something inside him shift, something he thought he had lost forever. Perhaps this was no longer about saving her life. Perhaps this was about saving his own. The underground shelter was cold and silent, the air heavy with dust. Daniel guided the alien woman deeper inside, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Broken crates and rusted tools lay scattered across the floor, reminders of a place once used by soldiers, long forgotten by war. He checked every corner, every shadow, before lowering his rifle. For now, they were safe. The alien sank against the wall, her breathing rough, her body trembling from exhaustion. Her glowing eyes followed Daniel as he searched the shelter, his movements sharp and practiced. She whispered, "Why do you still carry me with you? You could leave me here." Daniel paused, looking at her with hard eyes. "Because if I leave you, you die. And if you die, then all this risk was for nothing." She lowered her head, her voice soft. "I do not want to be nothing." Daniel opened one of the old crates, finding scraps of cloth and a half-broken blanket. He carried it to her and wrapped it around her shoulders. The alien touched the fabric carefully, her hands shaking. "You are helping me, even though I was your enemy." Daniel sighed, his voice low. "Maybe I am helping you because I'm tired of seeing everything turn into ash." He knelt beside her, examining her wounds. They were deep, some burned, some torn, the marks of both battle and chains. He cleaned them with what little supplies he had left, using strips of cloth dipped in water from his canteen. She winced but did not pull away, her glowing eyes fixed on his face. "You could have killed me when you found me," she whispered, "but you didn't." Daniel tightened the bandage, his jaw set. "Maybe I didn't because killing one more person won't bring my family back." The alien's lips parted, her voice breaking. "I lost my family too. The war took them, just like it took yours." Daniel froze, his hands still, his eyes narrowing at her. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" he asked, his tone sharp. She lifted her wrist, showing the deep scars left by chains. "Because I was a prisoner, because I was nothing more than property to them. I would not lie about this." For a moment, the silence between them was heavy. Filled with the weight of pain, neither wanted to speak aloud. Daniel looked at her and saw not just an alien, but someone broken, someone carrying the same scars inside. He leaned back, resting his head against the wall. "You say you want to be family, but family is trust, and trust is not given, it is earned." Her glowing eyes softened. "Then let me earn it. I will do whatever it takes. I will not betray you." The hours stretched long inside the shelter. Daniel sat awake, his rifle across his lap, listening to the distant echoes of soldiers above. The alien lay wrapped in the blanket, her body shaking with cold but her breathing steady. At one point she stirred and whispered, "Do you trust me even a little?" Daniel did not look at her, but his voice came quietly. "I trust that you want to live, and for now, that is enough." She smiled faintly, even in the dark. "It is more than I expected." Her eyes closed slowly, exhaustion pulling her into sleep. Daniel watched her carefully, ready for any trick, any sign of betrayal. But she did not move, did not reach for his weapon. She only slept like someone who had not rested in years. The silence grew deeper, the shelter like a tomb, holding secrets of the war above. Daniel leaned his head back, his own eyes heavy. But in the darkness, one thought would not leave him. The alien had begged him to spare her, had offered to be his family. And now, lying there under his protection, she had become the first living soul he allowed near his heart since the day his world burned. The shelter was quiet, broken only by the sound of dripping water echoing through the tunnels. Daniel had not slept much, his eyes always half open, his rifle never far from reach. The alien woman rested near the wall, her breathing soft, her glowing eyes closed as if dreaming of another world. But Daniel never allowed himself to dream. Dreams were dangerous. Dreams made him weak. Days passed slowly in the hidden place. Daniel scavenged what little food he could find in the ruins above, always returning with something for her. She ate little, always leaving a part of her share for him, whispering, "I cannot take more than you. I do not deserve it." He said nothing, but he noticed, and though his face remained hard, his heart began to shift. The wounds on her arms and legs started to heal, her strength returning piece by piece. She began to walk more steadily, moving around the shelter with quiet steps. At first, Daniel watched her every move, expecting betrayal, expecting her to strike when he least expected it. But she never did. Instead, she followed his orders, silent and obedient. One night, the silence broke. Daniel awoke with a sharp instinct, the kind that had saved him many times before. He opened his eyes to see the alien standing in the dark, her hands holding his rifle. His body tensed instantly, his hands sliding to the knife on his belt. In a heartbeat, he was ready to fight, ready to kill. The alien froze, her glowing eyes wide, the weapon heavy in her shaking hands. Daniel's voice cut through the silence, low and deadly. "What are you doing?" She trembled, her voice breaking. I wanted to feel it, the thing that could have ended me, the thing that decides who lives and who dies. Her hands shook violently. Then she lowered the rifle and placed it back in his lap, her voice almost a whisper. "I did not want to harm you. I only wanted to understand." Daniel stared at her, his eyes sharp, his heart racing with suspicion. But as he looked closer, he saw no malice, no trick, only fear and curiosity. If she had wanted to kill him, she had her chance, yet she returned the weapon instead. Slowly, Daniel lowered his knife, though his voice remained firm. "Never touch my rifle again. If you do, I will not forgive you." The alien nodded quickly, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I swear it. I will not touch it again. I only wanted to know what it felt like." The silence after her words was heavy, but different. Daniel felt something shift between them, fragile but real. Trust, the kind that grew not from words but from choices. She had held the weapon of his death, and she had returned it. In the days that followed, she tried harder to prove herself. When Daniel scavenged supplies, she insisted on helping, carrying what little her strength allowed. When he taught her how to move silently, she listened with full focus, never questioning him. One night she whispered, "You do not have to teach me, yet you do. Why?" Daniel looked at her sharply, then answered, "Because if you stay with me, you cannot remain weak. Weakness kills faster than bullets." She nodded, her glowing eyes shining with determination. "Then I will not be weak. I will not fail you." Still, Daniel tested her loyalty, leaving small tasks for her. He would tell her to guard the shelter while he searched the ruins, and each time he returned, she was there, waiting exactly where he left her. She never ran, never called for others, never betrayed the fragile bond they had begun to build. Every action, every word, slowly chipped away at the wall Daniel had built around his heart. One evening, as the dim light of sunset bled through cracks in the shelter's ceiling, the alien woman sat beside him, her voice soft. "You saved me, you feed me, you even taught me, but you still look at me with suspicion. Why?" Daniel kept his eyes on the broken horizon above. "Because trust is dangerous, because every time I trusted someone in this war, they ended up dead." She turned toward him, her glowing eyes filled with sorrow. "Then let me be the one who does not die. Let me be the one who proves trust can still mean something." Daniel finally looked at her, the silence stretching between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Her words echoed in his mind, heavy yet sincere. And though his lips did not speak it aloud, deep inside Daniel felt the beginning of something dangerous, something fragile. Trust. The days in the hidden shelter turned into weeks, but Daniel knew they could not stay there forever. Enemy patrols grew closer each night, their voices echoing above the ruins, their searchlights cutting through the darkness like sharp blades. The war was moving again, and if they were caught, there would be no mercy. Daniel began to prepare, not only himself, but the alien woman who had sworn to follow him. At first, she was clumsy, her steps loud, her balance broken, her breathing heavy. Daniel corrected her sharply, his voice firm. "You move like a soldier carrying chains, not like someone who wants to survive." Her glowing eyes narrowed with determination. "Then teach me, show me how to walk like you." So Daniel did. He showed her how to place her feet lightly on the ground, how to move through shadows without sound, how to freeze when danger was near. She listened carefully, repeating every move again and again, until her steps became quieter, her balance stronger. He taught her how to hide, how to use the ruins as cover, how to blend into the broken world so she was no longer seen. He taught her hand signals, simple ones, so she could follow without needing words. And when she failed, he made her repeat it until she did it right. She never complained, never argued, only whispered, again, until she succeeded. At night, Daniel tested her in silence, moving ahead without warning, waiting to see if she followed. Each time she stayed close, her glowing eyes never losing sight of him. One evening, after a long training session, she whispered, "You said family is trust, and trust must be earned. Have I earned even a small piece of it?" Daniel hesitated, his voice low. "You have earned enough to walk beside me, not behind me." The alien lowered her head, her voice trembling. "That is more than I ever hoped for." The bond between them grew stronger, not only through words but through survival. When Daniel scavenged food, she guarded the shelter with sharp focus. When danger came too close, she followed his lead without hesitation. And slowly, she stopped being the one who needed saving. She began to stand as someone who could protect as well. One night, the sound of heavy boots shook the ground. A patrol had discovered the ruins near their shelter, their voices harsh, their weapons glowing in the dark. Daniel gripped his rifle, ready to fight, but the alien woman touched his arm, whispering, "Let me help." He gave her a quick nod, signaling her to stay low. They moved together, silent as shadows, circling the patrol. Daniel signaled her to wait, and she obeyed, crouching behind broken metal as soldiers passed dangerously close. When one soldier turned toward her hiding place, Daniel raised his rifle, but before he could fire, she threw a small stone into the opposite corner. The soldier spun at the sound, and the patrol moved in that direction, buying them time to slip away. Daniel glanced at her, surprise in his eyes. She whispered, "I told you I will not be weak." After that night, Daniel began to see her differently, not just as someone he saved, not just as someone clinging to him for survival, but as someone who had chosen to fight beside him. She was learning, changing, becoming more than just a rescued prisoner. And Daniel realized something he never thought possible. He was no longer just protecting her. She was protecting him too. They moved through the ruins like hunters, careful, silent, always one step ahead of danger. At night, when they rested, the alien whispered, "When I beg you to spare me, I thought I was asking only for life." She paused, her voice soft but steady. "But now I see. I was asking for something greater. I was asking for a place beside you." Daniel felt a tightness in his chest, one he could not explain. He only said, "Then prove every day that you deserve it." Her glowing eyes shined in the dark as she whispered, "I will." The war outside continued, endless and cruel, but inside the bond between human and alien, a fragile truth was forming. Daniel had saved her life, but she was the one giving him back something he thought he had lost forever: hope. The ruins shook with violence, the sound of explosions ripping through the night. Daniel and the alien woman crouched behind a broken wall, their breaths fast, their eyes sharp. Enemy soldiers had found their trail, dozens of them, moving with heavy boots and glowing rifles. The shelter was no longer safe, the shadows no longer enough. It was time to fight. Daniel checked his weapon, his voice low but steady. "This is where we stand." The alien nodded, her glowing eyes fierce. "Then I will stand with you." He glanced at her once more, surprised by the fire in her voice, but he accepted it because there was no other choice. The soldiers advanced, their armor glinting under the broken moonlight. Daniel raised his rifle and fired, the sound cutting through the night like thunder. The alien stayed low at first, then moved with the same silence he had taught her, using the ruins as cover, striking when they least expected. The battle was brutal, sparks and smoke filling the air. Daniel fought with precision, every shot calculated, every movement sharp. But it was the alien who surprised him most. She moved like a shadow, fast and clever, drawing soldiers away with tricks, throwing stones to create false sounds, striking with scavenged metal when they came too close. At one moment, Daniel was pinned, a soldier aiming at him from above. Before he could react, the alien leapt from the side, slamming into the attacker, sending both crashing into the rubble. Her chains clattered as she fought, her strength raw and desperate. Daniel fired at another enemy, then pulled her back to cover, his voice sharp. "You'll get yourself killed." She gasped, her eyes fierce. "Then I die fighting beside you." The word struck him harder than the bullets flying past. She was no longer the weak prisoner he had found in the ash. She was his partner now, his ally, maybe even more. The soldiers kept coming, wave after wave, but together they pushed back. Every time Daniel fell behind, she was there pulling him forward. Every time she stumbled, he caught her, refusing to let her fall. The ground became littered with smoke and silence, the last soldier collapsing under Daniel's fire. For a moment, the ruins were quiet again, the night still. Daniel leaned against the wall, his chest heaving, his hands shaking from exhaustion. The alien woman stood beside him, her body bruised, her breath ragged, but her eyes shining with fierce light. They had survived together. Daniel looked at her, his voice rough. "You said once you wanted to be my family." She stepped closer, placing her hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, her voice soft but steady. "And you gave me a reason to live, a reason to fight. I will not leave you, Daniel. Not now, not ever." The silence stretched between them, not heavy, but alive. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something rise in him, something stronger than grief. "Hope." He nodded slowly, his voice low but clear. "Then we are family from this day on." The alien woman closed her eyes, relief and emotion washing over her. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, whispering, "Not enemy, not stranger, but family." Daniel placed a hand on her back, steady and firm. The war outside still raged, the world was still broken, but in that moment, two lost souls had found each other. And for the first time, Daniel believed that maybe humanity's future would not be built on war, but on bonds like this. A human soldier and an alien survivor, walking forward not as enemies, but as family.